Welcome, or I'm sorry for listening to this episode of the Suffering Sports Fan podcast. Uh, if you're listening to this podcast, you know the premise of it, and you know that the plan was to do this after most Dolphin games. Obviously, there was a Dolphins game last night, and we did not do it after the game because we needed a little bit to decompress, and sometimes that is going to happen. The Dolphins obviously lose a divisional matchup to the Buffalo Bills last night, 31-10 in Miami. And obviously, Dad, the leadoff story is that quarterback Tua Tagovailoa goes down, ironically, against Damar Hamlin with a concussion injury which is his third diagnosed concussion in the league thus far. Obviously, first, you have to say you hope he gets better, and you hope, that obviously health is the most important thing. He has a family now. He wants to stay healthy and continue to go about life, every way that he can. And you hope to see him back on the football field, but obviously that's not what people were thinking about right off the bat. But when you saw Tua go down, what were kind of your first thoughts? As he was healthy all last year. He played all 17 games. We led us to the playoffs, and so it's really been about a year and a half without any sort of worry that he was going to get injured, and to kind of have it happen again. You saw it online. If you're a Dolphins fan, you saw it online last night. The words from a lot of media members, from a lot of fans that were in the stadium, is that was maybe the most depressing night in Miami Dolphins history. With the expectations of this team, with the failure that this team completed to accomplish last night, not able to get the win, and then to see Tua once again go down, and not to mention Teron Armstead leave the game, Tyreek leave a game at a certain point. This Dolphins team cannot just lose in a normal way. When they lose, it is utter and total destruction. What were your first thoughts? Tua go down.
I have many, many layers of things to discuss. One, when we started this podcast, it was based on having had suffering defeats and suffering through this team for the past few decades.
Yep.
And no more podcast could be applied better. The game to this title, the title of the podcast. It was such an epic disaster on every level humanly possible. As a fan, as the players, for Tua, McDaniel, everything. It was so bad. Listen, I like Tua. You and I both like Tua. We think he's a good quarterback. I have friends texting me before every game. Let's see how Tua blows this game. I have people that don't like him, that think he can't play at all.
Sure.
I really don't want to relitigate all that stuff. You and I both think he's a quality NFL starter in this league. Does he need a few things to go right? Maybe a system, some talent around him. Okay, maybe. Is he top 3 quarterback in the league? Maybe not. But that doesn't mean he shouldn't be a starter in the league. He's a good quarterback. Right. Last night he was not good. Again, I always feel like I'm defending when he's not good because I don't feel like all of it was his fault. So we will get into the aspects of the game. Yeah, man, I hope he's okay. It's horrible. I'm sad. More than being angry, I'm sad.
Yeah.
He seems like a good guy, really cares, was doing something he knows better than to do. He should not be putting his head down. He was trying to get a first down because he wanted to inspire the team, do all the things we ask football players to do. Except when he does it, we ask him to not do it. It's such a difficult place to be, right? Yeah. Another player slides and doesn't get the first down. You're like, oh, he's not a tough guy, blah blah blah. Here he's doing everything you want a quarterback to do.
Yeah,
but he shouldn't be doing it.
And it's really hard because we all do this in everyday life when you get frustrated, when when you're trying to overcome something. What happens? You revert back into the old ways or the ways that you feel comfortable, and you just maybe the way you started how to play football. And for Tua, you saw him in college. It would be scrambling out of the pocket, throw on the run. He wasn't afraid to, lower his shoulder and get into people. And not every quarterback is like that. Josh Allen can fly and jump over people. He'll be perfectly fine. Lamar can run around laps over everybody. But, Tua spent all last year learning how to slide. It was he put on a bunch of weight so that when he fell, he was protected a little bit more, and he knew how to fall with the jujitsu. You would literally see him tumble over and do a handstand and then stand up straight. It was great, and partly a big reason of the reason he stayed healthy all last year. And then the object coming into this year was, all right, I know how to fall now. I'm going to lose a little bit of the weight. I'm going to get slimmer so I can escape the pocket, so I can run for first downs when I need to. But then if you're not going to take that extra step to make sure that you're going down to protect yourself when you are out of the pocket, then all that training you spent over a year doing to making sure that you could be the guy for this offense goes out the window. And so you really hate to see that. You could talk about this forever. Mike McDaniel, very, very visibly distraught on the sideline afterwards, and after the game. And even this morning said he barely slept, tried to call Tua was still sleeping. They have a very close relationship, and as this whole team does. But the plus side is that Tua did walk off the field by himself. He did stay back in the locker room and talk to his teammates after the game, make sure everybody was doing good. And so he was in good spirits. Obviously, the concussion is scary and it's bad. But what I will say, just to put a pin on this, because this argument does make me very upset when I hear it over and over again. I saw a lot of tweets last night, a lot of posts on social media that said, Tua's concussions keep getting worse and worse and worse. He needs to retire. Now, look, players go through really bad things. I understand where you're coming from. The head trauma, we know the effects football has on a person's body, and the injuries and the tolls that your body can take when playing the game. It's not a crazy argument to say that he should step away from football. What I do think is a crazy argument is everybody standing up here and deciding already he's done, that he shouldn't come back. It's this man's decision. And not to mention, you have guys like Alex Smith, who was a Pro Bowl quarterback. His leg almost was amputated off of a basic normal sack play, a normal football play. He ended up starting a year and a half later for the Washington football team. Then you had Damar Hamlin, whose heart literally stopped on the field 2 years ago. He is now back, and by the way, led the Bills in tackles last night. He came back. He worked hard to make sure he could play again. This is Tua's third concussion. It has been over a year and a half without any serious injury. Who's to say he cannot work back to continue to play? This decision is up to him. He is a
You're
good
right.
player. He is the quarterback of this team, and not to mention, he just got paid. So let's not sit here and pretend like he hasn't led the league in passing yards, like he doesn't have two amazing all-pro wide receivers to throw to with a coach that believes in him and an offense that is schemed for him and around him. Yes, the offensive line needs work. Yes, the play calling needs to grow in certain areas. Yes, we need a solid wide receiver 3 so that when Waddle and Tyreek are covered, he has a guy to throw to. He is going to figure out all these things, but the most important thing is that he gets back on the field, and that is a decision that he is going to get to make, and that I think is fully possible and realistic for him to make, to come back to play, because we have seen other people who have suffered significantly more life-threatening emergency situations on the field than Tua has. He was able to walk off. He is fine, and he will play.
Well, I think people, you bring up some good points, but I think people look at the brain and what happens later in life, and seeing him have that issue with his fingers and the whole thing again is very scary. And I think it raises it to a different level of concern.
That's why I said it's not a crazy argument for people to make that he should step away.
But
All I'm
also
saying
he
is
has,
the NFL has allowed people with other serious life-threatening injuries to return to the game, and the
yeah,
fact
I
that
don't
people
think
have
the
already
no.
decided the NFL is not going to allow him to even have the opportunity to come back seems a little nonsensical to me,
I
considering
don't
the other
think
players who've returned to the field. That's all I'm
Well, I
saying.
think the NFL, maybe. I don't think the NFL can pressure somebody to not play. I don't know if that's even allowed. But um, look, I think he's definitely going to miss, I think, a significant amount of time. I think that has to be the case.
He's missing the next
Um,
game. He will not play the next game.
for
The
for
Dolphins have
sure.
a long week. They plan a Sunday, so they have about 10 days.
But I
Hopefully
will say
that's enough
something.
time for
I heard somebody on another podcast. I apologize for not remembering where I heard it, but saying something like, sometimes it just the game will show you that maybe your body is not
yeah.
made for this game,
Yep.
right? Robert Griffin III is an example. Greg Oden in the NBA, right? Like
Sure.
they could just have some guys. Like, you're super talented. You're great at it. You've
Yep.
worked your whole life, and for whatever reason, the guys are bigger, faster, stronger, whatever it is, and it just happens that, dude, you gave it your all, man. Your
Sure.
body's not cut out for this. I'm afraid
Yep.
that might be the case here, and and the thing that comes into play is now he does have the money for to really take care of himself and his family. There's no pressure to earn that contract. I think he felt a lot of pressure to earn that contract.
Yeah.
On the other side of that, he may feel pressure now to honor the contract, right?
Sure.
So I don't know where that goes, but I wouldn't be surprised either way. I sort of expect that he'll try and come back and play. It's
Yes.
football, but I also would not be surprised if we didn't see him again. So
Yeah.
it's a tough one. But again, look, we wish him the best. We like him. We root for him.
Of course.
Let's
If any
let's
player
move
was
on
in this
to
situation, you want them to be healthy and you want them to return to play. But
let's move on to
yeah.
the game aspect and
Mhm.
the mountain of things that are wrong with this team
All right. Well,
because
let's start in the first
I
quarter.
have a lot
And
to say.
sure, let's start in the first quarter with the two interceptions that he threw. And you hate to
So,
just talk negative
well,
about
can I
every
just
night.
can I just jump in with one
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
point?
Yeah.
So it's very funny because I've I've learned that I have to sometimes detach myself from the game in order to like have be mentally stable watching these
Sure.
games. And over the
Yeah.
years, I think I have friends of mine that we sort of feel the same way. You see a Dolphin game start to go one way, and you immediately go, "Well,
Yeah.
this forget this one. This one's done." And I
Yeah.
know you don't always agree with me when why are you giving up so soon? Like it's like I've seen this so many times. And the
Yeah.
minute I'm telling you, like the minute the ricochet, because the way we lose in these instances is like insanity. It's stuff that
So
doesn't
it is
normally happen.
so disastrous, more than
It's
any
so
team I've ever
right.
seen.
Right. It's not.
The
It's not.
penalties, the turnovers, the injuries. I mean, it's
We
like
don't lose. We rarely lose like it's 7-7, 10-7, the close game. Oh, you didn't kick, you missed a field goal. The other team scored a touchdown at the last second. We almost don't lose like that anymore. We
ever,
either win
ever.
or we get obliterated. And so the minute like the ricochet interception happens and they go and
Yeah.
score a touchdown on a 4th and 3, I'm like, this is done. I
Right.
I absolutely felt this game's done. I stuck out for a little bit longer, and then midway through the second quarter, I was out. So I only found out about the Tua concussion from texts from people,
Yeah.
and um, and so yeah, that was then I put the game back
Which
on
if
to see
for
what was
people
sort of
listening
going on.
saying, that's not real fandom. No, that is real fandom. He does that a lot because this team makes people emotional and he will walk out if it
I
does
get
not
too
go well.
upset. I get
Yeah,
too
no,
upset.
I
And so
understand.
I
They've sucked for
just,
so long.
my thing is, I just don't, I can't suffer through ineptitude. I
All
can
right,
suffer
well,
through a tough game, but not
sure.
ineptitude. And
All
that's
right,
what that
so
was last night.
yeah, let's talk about the two interceptions first of all. So obviously that first interception, it ricochets off of the hand slash face of Grant DeBose, an undrafted rookie wide receiver. I do not remember what college he went to, but he was signed with Green Bay this offseason. The Dolphins signed him last week or two. And the reason they did that was because he's really, really tall. He's like 6'5", kind of fast for his height. And most of the Dolphins receivers are under 6 feet or 5'11". And so the Dolphins have a very small receiving core. And the logic was, we're going to bring this guy who's kind of tall and fast, and maybe he'll learn our system. On the field at that time was Grant DeBose, this undrafted rookie wide receiver, Robbie Anderson, former Jets, Panthers player, if you remember, who's been around with the Dolphins for a few seasons now.
Needs to be cut.
Durham Smythe and Jeff Wilson, right? Jeff Wilson's a good player, but that is that's the offense you have on the field. So you're leaving Tua out there to try and throw to not Tyreek, to not Achane, to not Waddle. I mean, first of all, what do you expect, right? Then the Dolphins bounce back. They go down and drive. They tie the game. They get a 3-and-out. Great. Oh, the Dolphins get the ball back. They can go up 10-7, 14-7. What happens? Who is on the field on that next interception? Robbie Chosen. He was the only wide receiver on the field. It was a designed play for a pass to be thrown to a wide receiver. And the wide receiver that you were
stopped running the route and
Robbie Chosen.
Doesn't even turn around. I can't.
Now, that throw was not a great throw by Tua. I think everybody knows that. Tua should have recognized. Obviously, if the route was wrong, you can't throw it over a guy's head 20 yards like that. But it is. I think we see this time and time again, and we talk about. You brought up last episode the Dolphins miss a guy like Odell Beckham. They miss a reliable guy who just has the hands, who can make contested catches, someone who you can put out there and he can get you 10 yards. And outside of Tyreek and Waddle, I actually really liked what I saw from Jonnu Smith. Achane has been great.
Jonnu Smith was solid.
But outside of your two star wide receivers, you do not have that third specific wide receiving pass catching option that is reliable for you. It's all about speed. And the other guys, Robbie Chosen and Berrios sometimes, and Grant DeBose, do not have the timing and the quickness that Tyreek and Waddle have. It is so not in sync. And I don't understand why McDaniel does this a lot of the time. We know that he gets so cutesy with the plays that he runs, with the fake tosses and the pitches and the things and the emotions. And sometimes they work and sometimes it doesn't. But then when you're picking a play to run, you got to understand the personnel that you are putting out on the field. Why are you putting out these guys on the field and running these special tosses and motions to wide receivers who can't catch?
It's a massive problem. This is why we lost the game last year. One of the reasons we lost the game last year to Buffalo at the end of the season too, because the people he was throwing it to at the end, what was that other receiver we picked up?
It was Chase Claypool.
Chase Claypool was on 4th and 10 to save the season. Right. Chase Claypool.
Right.
I mean, it's complete. I keep going to this word that has been in my head today, but everything that McDaniel, Greer, and all of them that have done to set up this team for success actually has been malpractice. Honestly, the offensive line, if you have a fragile quarterback like this, and it's all dependent on him having that extra second to get Hill open, to throw to Waddle, whatever it is, to not get a concussion.
Yeah.
Invest in your offensive line. They did none of that, and yet they still continue to count on Teron Armstead, who is already hurt. It's just
Chris Greer built this team to succeed as if he knows for a fact and has planned out the fact that all 22 starters were going to be healthy for every game and every second of every game. We know in the NFL that is not a guarantee. And specifically when we're talking about the Miami Dolphins, that is never guaranteed. Starting from the quarterback
all
position,
our players get hurt like in every game.
All the way down to punter. It is not guaranteed at all. And the reason the best teams continue to succeed over and over and over again, we saw it with Shanahan in San Francisco for many years, even when his former starter and Jimmy Garoppolo would go down. They have a balanced team where they could put in any quarterback with the weapons. The offensive line was stacked. When you had an offensive lineman go out, you had another great backup go in. The defense never misses a beat. The Dolphins do not have the depth in certain areas that they need to succeed. What happened? First drive of the second half for Miami. They got a stop. They got the ball back. Honestly, the game was not fully away yet. It was 24-10. The Dolphins could have gone down and scored. Tua was healthy on that drive. And Teron Armstead gets hurt. Okay, Teron Armstead gets hurt. Who comes in? Kendall Lamb. Kendall Lamb comes in, who's been with the Dolphins for a couple years. He comes in at left tackle. He's not a consistent left tackle. He plays guard most of the time, but he was the choice there. And what happens on literally 2 plays later? Kendall Lamb misses a pressure. The defender runs right past him. Tua gets hit throwing as he's trying to throw the ball out of bounds because no one is open. And it results in a pick six.
That was
right there.
It wasn't an interception that was like, oh, that's a bad throw. It was a bad decision. So it wasn't like he can't be a quarterback because he made a bad throw. It was a terrible decision. Just take the sack or throw the ball down or just don't do that. That is one of the main things you don't do as a quarterback. Throw the ball up in the air, falling down. It's what Will Levis did and how Will Levis lost the game to the Bears.
Yes, I agree. It was a poor decision on Tua's part. I don't think I could argue that, or most people argue take the sack or throw the ball down. We get that. What I'm saying is inexcusable, and where we started off this conversation was you cannot expect in an offseason to lose Robert Hunt, who got paid $100 million, Connor Williams, who was ranked by PFF, NFL as the best pass blocking guard center in football last year before he got injured. You lose Christian Wilkins on the defensive line. You lose Raekwon Davis on the defensive line. And what were the 2 most crucial parts of last night's game? Tua had no protection at all. You had your left guard and left tackle go out, and James Cook ran all over the Dolphins defensive line. It was atrocious in the first half. 3 first half touchdowns. And you cannot expect to lose those 4 guys who have been a core piece of this program, who got paid big money this offseason, and expect this team to be better when you get guys who are a fraction of the cost of what those guys were. The talent level results come from how you knew you were going to have to pay these guys. They are not the same level talent, and you do not have backups for when those guys you paid go down. It is
you lose a game 31-10 where Josh Allen barely did. He didn't have to play.
Fantasy managers were upset last night. Josh Allen threw for 150 yards. He did nothing
because they figured out what was the one thing that was working. What was the one thing that was working for Jacksonville, and they went away from it, was running that guy Bigsby, who was running all over us, and they were adamant that they were going to throw the ball with Trevor Lawrence. The Bills figured out, we don't have to throw the ball against this team. Let's just run the ball. They realized it was working, and that's all they did. And we had no answer to stop it. Yeah. So yeah, it's a big problem, and maybe it's going to turn out that losing Christian Wilkins was the biggest loss of the season. I wasn't so sure after last week, but last night was pretty stark.
Well, Calais Campbell is a very good replacement for the price that you got him. He is older. We understand that. But what Christian Wilkins, what the most underrated part of his game wasn't just that, he would get to the quarterback fast, but he has like the most tackles by any defensive lineman, by any defensive tackle since he's come into the league. Tackles, not sacks, not QB pressures. Like when the ball gets past the line of scrimmage, he is always at the ball, whether that's right at the line of scrimmage or 10 yards down the field. And that is going to be a part of his game that you miss, because you had a really good defensive line last year, but then you knew that you had defensive linemen that could stop the run when you needed to, even if it was giving up 2 or 3 yards after the line of scrimmage. He stopped them before it turned into 10, 12, or 15. Right. And so that was something that last night was pretty jarring. And what scares me so much, and I wouldn't say makes the Bills more of a dangerous team. I think it was more of a downside to the Dolphins defense, where if you have to go into Buffalo, which they will in November, and hopefully, Tua and Armstead and the guys are healthy for that game, it makes it a whole lot more frustrating for this Dolphins defense. And as a fan to watch, knowing that they have Josh Allen can go and literally do whatever he wants, then the running game for the Bills will just happen all the time because we have no way to stop anything. This team is not tough enough to beat Buffalo, and until they do, I mean, you can't say that this team has any hope of winning the division.
So the problems that they didn't focus on the offseason, like we discussed, offensive line, wide receiver, they tried, but everybody they drafted or picked up is hurt.
Yep.
I think we don't
Malik
see Odell Beckham
Washington,
play.
Craig Kraft, OBJ, all hurt.
I don't think Odell Beckham actually ends up playing. It's just my gut feeling is that he ends up not playing at all.
We'll see.
And then your draft, maybe Chop Robinson's going to be okay, but was that what we needed to do? I think it's just all them being it's their hubris and thinking we got this all figured out. Tua's never going to get hurt again. Teron Armstead's going to play a full season finally. Just all silliness on their part, and not preparing. So there's malpractice there in their off season. But I want to move to coaching, and maybe it's limited because of the personnel and the injuries, but
Sure.
the decision making sometimes it's starting to get to me, man. Like that fourth down that they went to again was unnecessary,
Yep.
and the very next play was the long touchdown by James Cook. Like he just keeps putting the team in bad positions by taking chances where they don't need to be taken, and I know that that's part of the makeup, but it's different when you're 4th and 1 inside the 10 and you need a touchdown. Okay, go for that. But at the 50, you don't need to go for it all the time. You're playing against a team that is challenging,
Yeah.
and maybe you pin them and you give your defense an advantage. The game is still within reach. It's early. He just continues to do that. And then the personnel swaps. There's it's almost like with the Miami Heat. You should never have a lineup where one of Bam or Jimmy is off the court,
Right.
right? Like with the Dolphins, Waddle or Hill, one of them should always be on. You've got to figure out a way to do that. It's just at this point, these random players, Dubois, at that point early in the game, what is that? That's insane to me. And why are they not prepared better? Why is Robbie Chosen running around and not turning around and Tua overthrowing him? I can't believe that Tua is that inept at that throw. We've seen him make that throw a million times to Hill, to Waddle, to whoever, and they catch it and it's on time and it's on target. Tua throws to a spot. That guy was not at the spot. Now, maybe he should have recognized and not thrown it. I don't know how that works, how the timing of that works. It's challenging. But that's just wrong. It's a mistake.
Yeah.
And the other thing that is more evident is that the Dolphins are basically a home run or bust team.
If they do not have that big play.
If we do not have the big play, we can't compete. And the good teams, the 5 to 6 good teams in the league that we keep losing to, they have the personnel, the coaching, whatever it is, to stop the big play. The bad teams don't. So it's very possible that even with Skylar Thompson, we go up to Seattle, we get a couple of 50-yard passes in there and we compete. Maybe we win, maybe, I don't know. But it's possible that continues.
Probably not. Yeah.
But there's no evidence to suggest that against the good teams that we can do that again. And maybe even the bad teams will figure that out. Listen, let's double cover both Hill and Waddle and leave other random people completely wide open. They're not capable of even making a catch on this team. I mean, and the line can't block. So maybe by the time that happens, you look for Hill or Waddle, who are both double covered, and by that time our quarterback is sacked because the offensive line can't even protect him to throw to the third guy. So yeah, it's personnel, it's coaching. I don't know. It's bad, and wow, our ridiculous. We knew they were ridiculous predictions of 13-4. We knew that. It absolutely looks possible. We are looking at 4-13, just like that, and that is unbelievable.
You said it. I think it was a shock to Dolphins fans when they announced that they were cutting Mike White and only going to the season with 2 quarterbacks, Tua obviously being one of them, and Skylar Thompson being the second string. they're going to sign somebody. Maybe they go and snatch Mike White again off of Buffalo's waivers because I believe he's on the practice squad, which should mean the Dolphins could be able to sign him again. I wouldn't be shocked if they bring Mike White back.
No, he's on the practice squad at Buffalo.
He's on a practice squad, so the Dolphins could bring him back.
Oh,
Practice
well,
squad
would
is
they
not
after this though?
signed.
Would they
Uh,
bring him back after this game?
He didn't play, and Mike White knows their team. I don't think that's a crazy idea. I would love to see
I heard
maybe
Joe Flacco as a possibility.
Joe Flacco. I think Joe
I
Flacco's
wouldn't
on
be
the line.
against that, to be honest with you. He played
Honestly,
really good for Cleveland,
I
and with
would
these
love
wide
a
receivers, maybe he could do something.
I would love a Ryan Tannehill back in Miami. I think it's
Yeah,
I know, but like you see with Tannehill back in Miami throwing a Waddle and Tyreek. I mean, I
maybe.
think I'm down. I'd like to see that, but
It's a mess. It's
I think
terrible.
one takeaway from this game is that no matter how bad the Bills' defense could be with the players that they've lost, no matter who Josh Allen is throwing to, Buffalo is clearly not going away anytime soon. And the Dolphins
I think they might be better, and I think
have shown no will to that they can go into Buffalo and beat this team.
there's also an aspect of it before we close out, though. That's also when you really want something so bad and you're trying so hard, you
Yeah,
really psych yourself out.
yeah,
And for people that watch Ninja Warrior, spoiler alert, but like the weatherman Joel Moravsky, at this point, it has to be in
right.
that guy's head that
It's a
he's not
mental thing
finishing
because
because
he knows he's the
he's
best.
the best one there, and he
Sure.
clearly loses every time because he wants it so bad.
On Ninja
And
Warrior
I just feel
podcast.
like the minute you have to imagine that these guys are only human.
Right.
The ricochet on that first interception epitomized everything to me. It was the minute that happens,
But
you
then
have
Tua
to feel
goes
as
5 for
Dolphin
5,
fans, you're
50
like,
yards and scored it right afterwards. Like it was a great drive afterwards. They bounced back. Post interception Tua
well,
is a real thing, and I thought that
we don't know
he
what the rest of the season holds. I don't know, but honestly,
what we do know is that it is Skylar Thompson's team for the near future. The defense needs to get their stuff together. And if the defense does not play well, then this team is going to be in some serious
it's going to be
trouble.
toast.
Playoffs are going to be out of the
We need
picture.
Raheem Mostert back. We need him back.
Hey, before we go here, seriously, last point.
Oh yeah, I think
Shout
what
out
you're
to
going to say.
shout out to Von Achan. He was
Absolutely.
unbelievable. Should have mentioned him earlier. There are very very little positive things coming from this game. What maybe
He's
the
it.
only positive
He's it.
was Devon Achan. He had 29 touches in this game, 22 rushes. I believe just 5 catches, maybe 27 opportunities for him last night, and he was
But almost
awesome.
200 yards of offense or something, right?
He had 96 rushing yards. He had I think over 50 receiving yards and a touchdown as well. It seems that he is the clear wide receiver 3 on this offense. He is the third option. Even if Mostert or Jonnu Smith are on the field, if Tyreek and Waddle are there, Achan is that other guy that Tua or whoever the quarterback is going to be looking to. And I mean, the speed is real. And if that is what, before the game, he wasn't working, he wasn't practicing before the game. He had an ankle injury he was nursing. And if that what a limited Devon Achan night is going to look like, I mean, you got to be happy for his future. I mean, he was
Well, let's just knock on wood that he stays healthy because he may be the offense this year. I do want to give a quick shout out. My good friend John Fiala was very nice and made these wonderful SSF podcast mugs for us.
Very cool.
Thank you, John. They're super cool. Yep. And I will make sure to never watch a Dolphin game with one near me.
Yeah, we're going to throw it.
Because I may break it.
We're going to throw it.
But
sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, we'd love to hear you guys' comments. What you guys think is going to happen? What should happen? Revise the outlook on the season, all that kind of stuff. Hopefully, we have enough spirit in us as the season moves forward to keep doing podcasts, but they may get too depressing after a while and we may have to stop. I don't know. But anyway, man, what a turn. God, being a Dolphin fan is never boring. You got to say that much. It's wild.
Never.
Anyway,
All
close us
right,
out, man.
that is gonna do it for this post Dolphins Bills game episode of the Suffering Sports Fan podcast. Make sure that you follow us on Instagram, on Twitter at Fins Fan Podcast, and hopefully the next time we see you, the Dolphins have won a game with Skylar Thompson. Good to see you.
See you guys. Yep.